Every season, there are players that break out in the NFL, and some are expected and some are seemingly out of nowhere. And last year, we had several rookies burst onto the scene, and while some rookies were expected to have good years, a few like Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons had generational rookie seasons. And in today's video, we are going to be discussing a few players that are bound to break out in 2022. And please know before we start that just because I referenced Jamar and Micah from last year, does not mean we are going to exclusively discuss rookies, and with that preface out of the way, let's begin. And as surprising as this may sound, we are going to start today's video with Marquise Brown, now of the Arizona Cardinals. Everyone has players they are either higher or lower on than the national media, or the fantasy football community, or the regular NFL fan, and I am higher than a lot of people on Hollywood Brown. I've always thought he was a lot more talented than what the stat sheet showed, and Hollywood is a player, believe it or not, that was on pace for a 98 catch, 1,449 yard, 13 touchdown season based on what he had in the first 8 games of 2021. He had all 6 of his touchdowns last year during that time, and had all 3 of his 100-yard games during that span as well. And after the dreaded Dolphins game on Thursday night for the Ravens, Marquise was not the same player on the stat sheet, and some of that can obviously be attributed to Lamar Jackson being injured for much of the final stretch of the season. But Hollywood is now going to an offense where he will be the number 1 guy for at least the first 6 games of the season, with DeAndre Hopkins being suspended, and with the chemistry him and Kyler already have, and assuming both stay healthy for all 17 games, why can't Hollywood have 1,300 or more yards this year? Remember, he had 1,008 in an offense in 2021 that limited what he could do because of the emphasis to run the football, and he had quarterback play that was not good for a lot of the second half of the season. One thing I do want to be clear though is while I think Marquise will have a great year in 2022 with how the Cardinals offense is assembled, kind of like a Big 12 offense or a 7-on-7 type offense, I fully expect him to have a couple of games with less than 30 or 40 yards. When he's on though, he's on, and I don't think it's out of the question for Marquise to have a couple of 130 or 140 yard games in the 2022 season. Hell, it wouldn't even surprise me if he led the NFL next year in games with 130 or more receiving yards. But there will probably be a higher boom or bust rate on a week-to-week basis with Marquise than other premier NFL receivers. I fully expect Marquise to finish with at least 90 catches for 1,200 yards and 8+ touchdowns, all of which would be career highs. Next up is a player who you could argue broke out during his rookie season, as he had 8.5 sacks and 16 quarterback hits in 2021, and that's Dolphins pass rusher Jalen Phillips. The reason we include him in today's video is because Jalen can take an even bigger step in 2022 than what he did in his rookie season. Phillips is a great pass rusher, and at 22 years old in his rookie season last year, started just 5 games, and what has to be remembered not just for Jalen, but for the rest of the 2021 draft class, a lot of these guys were probably workout ready entering the 2021 season, meaning they came in good shape, but not necessarily football shape and ready to take hits time after time after time, if that makes sense. As a lot of the guys from this class didn't have a full 2020 season, and Jalen is no exception. He played in 10 games in his final season at the University of Miami after retiring because of concussions earlier in his college career. So this was a player entering the 2021 draft who had played 10 games in the previous 2 years, and in the first 7 games of his rookie season, he played in over 80% of the defensive snaps in a game just once, and that was in a loss to the Jags. Conversely, he played in less than 30% of the snaps 3 times in those first 7 games. From week 8, he was on the field more consistently and had 7 sacks over the final 10 games of the season and 10 quarterback hits as well, which put him on pace for a 12-sack season. What will benefit Jalen in his NFL future is playing not just in the division he's in, but the conference, as a lot of times when discussing football amongst friends and other NFL fans, what's one thing that's always said about today's era regarding numbers? think specifically of someone like Matt Ryan, who's top 10 all-time in passing yards, yet you probably wouldn't have him in your top 10 quarterbacks all-time. And it's that we're in a passing era more than ever before, and numbers are going to be higher more than ever for quarterbacks and receivers. But what people I don't want to say realize within that, but not necessarily acknowledge, is because of more passing attempts also means more chances to get after a quarterback and more sacks for opposing defenses. And with a full offseason for Jalen to work, and for a player who had shown he already was picking it up during his rookie year, I'd be surprised if he finishes 2022 with less than 12 or 13 sacks. This guy is truly the limit for Jalen Phillips. The next player we'll discuss is without a doubt the most under the radar entering the season out of any players we'll discuss in today's video, but it is Cameron Bynum of the Minnesota Vikings. If I had to describe Bynum as a player comparison for those that may be hearing of him for the first time, it'd be similar to a Tyrann Mathieu light. He's a Swiss Army knife in the secondary, and he definitely showed flashes in his rookie season. And the reason we include him in today's video is when looking at the Minnesota Vikings secondary of him, Harrison Smith, first round pick Lewis Cine, and corners Patrick Peterson, Andrew Booth, and Cameron Dantzler, Bynum and Booth too for that matter, will receive a lot of passes in their general direction. Of course, pass coverage isn't as simple as saying, Cameron, line up on Christian Watson, he's your guy, lock him down every single play. But as we know, there's players quarterbacks generally don't like to throw at, and understandably so. The risk is not worth the reward. And because of that, I fully expect Cameron to snag 3 or 4 interceptions in 2022, simply because a lot of opposing teams don't know who he is, or if in the case they do, they'll underestimate him and think he's not all that good of a player. And for clarity, I'm not saying he's going to have this Hall of Fame caliber season where he has 8 or 9 interceptions with 2 or 3 defensive touchdowns, but I do think Bynum will be a pleasant surprise this upcoming season. He started in a couple of games last year and managed to have an interception against Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens, and also recorded 12 tackles in that same game. He's a very, very smart football player, and it showed on tape when he was out there last year. This is a good example of a player who was a backup in his rookie season and can, and hopefully will, flourish in his second season. And playing next to Harrison Smith and being in the same DB room as him and Pat Pete, a veteran corner who is known to help younger players, as he has said countless times he just wants guys to succeed, is a perfect recipe for Cameron Bynum to be the next guy up and to have a breakout year in 2022. And before we get to the next player, I would like to say there are several guys that could be in today's video that are applicable here, like Jerry Jeudy of the Broncos, who we discussed in yesterday's video, DeAndre Swift of the Lions, and rookie receivers Christian Watson and Sky Moore, among many, many others. But the next player we're going to discuss is Gabe Davis of the Buffalo Bills. Gabe is a former 4th round pick from UCF, and in his first 2 years in the league, playing largely behind both Stephon Diggs and Cole Beasley, Gabe has racked up back-to-back 35-catch seasons, but has 13 touchdowns on 70 total receptions, which, all things considered, is pretty impressive. And we all saw the performance he had in the divisional round of the playoffs this past year, as against the Chiefs, he had an 8-catch, 201-yard, 4-touchdown game, and for any player, that's insane. And because the Bills ended up losing that game, it's also the most recent game that he and Buffalo played in. And with Gabe, he plays on a team where there are countless weapons, and they even added to that in the draft by selecting running back James Cook. The Chiefs pretty much said in that playoff game, anyone but Stephon Diggs. We're not going to lose to him, and Josh Allen pretty much said, alright, bet. I'll just throw to Gabe the entire game, and even in the fourth quarter with the game on the line, he came through time and time again. And because of this performance from Gabe in the postseason, it brings up a question teams will have to try and answer this year, and that's which piece in this offense are you going to keen in on and stop? Which player are you effectively taking out of the game? If you take out Diggs like the Chiefs did, they still have Dawson Knox and Gabe Davis, and if you want the Bills to run the ball to beat you, they can do that, and Josh Allen will play a part in that himself. There are countless weapons for the Buffalo Bills, and after having back-to-back 35-catch seasons, I think this is the year we will see Gabe emerge and have a 60 to 70 catch year, and very close, if not have double-digit touchdowns. He is a TD machine, and I don't expect that to stop anytime soon, as there is a clear high level of trust between him and Josh Allen. And to show how high of a touchdown percentage Gabe has through the first 2 years of his career, if Michael Thomas caught touchdowns in 2019 at the rate Gabe has so far, 2019 was the year Michael Thomas had 149 catches and broke Marvin Harrison's single-season record, he would have had 27 touchdowns that year alone. Gabe has paid his dues and will emerge in 2022. And with that being said, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, now is the time I ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, because it would truly mean the world. Please join the Discord, the link is in the bio, and until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great day. Love you guys.